Hello there, my name is Addy. I study MA Theatre and Performance at the University of Sheffield. I'm from Thorpe originally, and I did my BA at Manchester Met, which is in Crewe, not actually in Manchester, which is fun. I've been into theatre and performance for most of my life. I can't sing and I can't dance, but I'm interested in devised work, new experimental theatres. At the minute I've kind of got this thing about using like open space, like disused office buildings and things like that, and that's what I'm moving into at this part of my career, I suppose, or my education. I was born at Rotherham District General Hospital about 20 to midnight on the 21st of June 1989. I don't really remember much of that, to be honest. But apparently I didn't cry, which apparently is unusual for newborn babies. My childhood was, I wouldn't say it was anything particularly brilliant or special, but at the same time I wouldn't say it was bland and boring. My parents got me into a hell of a lot of things. My dad introduced me to comic books and graphic novels, which I'm still interested in, and I read Judge Dredd quite frequently, and Charlie's War. And I also like Road Trooper, but the only sad thing is that the only one of those three that's still going is Judge Dredd, so I'm going through the back catalogue with the other ones. I also enjoy building airfix models, things like aeroplanes, tanks, ships. For a long time I was into Warhammer as well, 40k, the normal Warhammer, and the Lord of the Rings one. The Lord of the Rings one was kind of my forte. And at the weekends I used to hang around with a group of friends, Jason, Theo, Andy, Mark, our John, little brother, Josh Froder, can't forget him, Jordan Hagen, Liam Bradley, but they both kind of moved away and grew up really quickly. And we just used to go walking on the fields near Thorpe. We used to visit a place called, well, we used to call it the Saturday Place, which was, it's on it's like a stream next to a hill with a random bit of road on top of it, but it was a good hour and a half's walk away from home and a good hour and a half's walk back, so I had quite a walkabout childhood. My relationship with my parents, though, it's an unusual one because they are very supportive and they do encourage me to kind of go off and do my own thing, but the thing is, with that, they were very, very supportive as well. Particularly in the run-up to going to college, particularly when I got back after uni, because I wouldn't say I was in a bad place, I was in a very kind of confusing place where I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. But my mum's one of those advocates of sod it, do what you want as long as it makes you happy, but I guess she implied that that doesn't include things like murder and various illegal activities. Well, my grandmother on my mother's side is quite a devout Christian, not Roman Catholic. I think she's Protestant, and she does kind of. She's not one of those kind of grandmothers who's overbearing with her beliefs, though. She kind of is cool with us not believing in God as long as we live in morally upright lives, which we all kind of are. I mean, my little brother's currently studying mathematical sciences at the University of Coventry, and my little sister's Arama is studying she was studying at the University of Sheffield for 3 years, doing a dual honours in, I think it was criminology and social sciences, but that's probably wrong. I mean, it was difficult at times, but I'm sure everybody has difficulties trying to grow up and trying to find a place they fit, and to be fair, I think to some extent I am still trying to find where I exist in this whole globe, people, humanity thing. But I suppose that kind of, I wouldn't say, again, going back to a religious upbringing, I wouldn't say that I was brought up in a particular way. I was just kind of taught to just respect other people and just be aware that there's more than me on the planet. So I mean, I do stupid things, like when I'm at a pub I always take my glass back to the bar just to help out the poor bastard who's working on the bar. And if I ever see anybody drop something, I always try and chase them if I can. I mean, the other day I saw a bloke drop a a glove getting off the bus at Rodham train station, so I just picked it up and ran back. So, yeah. I think I'm a proponent of the big electron theory, the fact that, you know, there's so many things all just whizzing around and eventually bump into something, and life throws up challenges, definitely. But I think a lot of the measure of a person is how you deal with those challenges. I mean, I wouldn't say there's a propensity for people to be arseholes, but you do meet arseholes along the way. I mean, I think some people just don't like people. Yeah, and I think it's kind of difficult to function in this world sometimes. And sometimes you just have to remember that humanity is probably the greatest gift of all, and you have to be willing to be open to things and to share things, because you can't expect to receive anything without giving something first. School, from infants right the way through to comprehensive and to some extent even college, I wouldn't say that I was a loner as such, but again, I think this is probably, I mean, I've not mentioned it yet, but both my parents are profoundly deaf, and it's strange how I forget to mention things like that. But I found it really difficult to listen to people and to talk to people, particularly when I first started infants and junior school. I didn't really know how to interact with other people, because up until that point I'd just had my mum and dad. Well, now John, but Emma's 2 years younger than me, now John's 4 years younger than me. I did enjoy school, but in terms of the actual school work, and I'm probably going to paraphrase Spider-Man 3 here, or Spider-Man 2, where I think I was good, but I was very lazy. And I guess in some ways I still am. I still very much like my downtime as everybody else does. But school is an overall experience. I mean, you hear horror stories all the time about how terrible school can be. But with the benefit of hindsight, you kind of start to realise how good it was, and how much easier it was actually. Because I mean, you've always got someone there to get you back. I mean, you've got your mum and dad to look after you. Well, I certainly did. That's not to belittle anybody else's parents or anything. I'm just trying to be aware of the fact that obviously some people don't have a mum or a dad or both. I once saw a man and a woman in a train station talking through sign, but they didn't know I knew sign. They were talking about sex again. I thought this was funny. I felt slightly marginalised, but I don't know if that's because my parents were deaf, and obviously that affects in how other people saw me, or if it was just something that I created in my head. But yeah, I did feel isolated at school, really. But hey ho, I mean, I was young at the time and I had no idea what I was doing, to be fair to my extent, I still don't. But no, I wouldn't say school was a bad time. I'd say it was how would I describe school? It's one of those things because I can't really remember it, but I can. I don't know. School was good. We'll go with school is good. Was good. Mind you, I'm still at school technically, so school is good. Stay in school. In terms of my approach to creating theatre, I mean, it's all underpinned by a lot of the kind of processes and practices that I was exposed to on my bachelor's. Things like the Worcester Group, Liz LeConte certainly was a big influence. Obviously that's part and parcel with working with Nancy, Riley McVitie, who was in LSD just at high points. Richard Foreman, Richard Scheckner even, he was a really big influence. This idea of being able to bring fragments together into new compositions to kind of strip meaning away from established playtext and film and novels even, and to represent it in a new format, which obviously would be a theatrical format. A long time ago, when I was back at Robin Youth Theatre, when I was about 16, 17, 18, I used to do a lot of my own script writing, which would then be produced by the youth theatre, which gave me an immense source of pride because it was something that I'd written and created that was being made. I used to write down a lot of plays, but now I've kind of contracted a bit. I now write sections for my own projects, usually for acceptance and things like that. But at the same time, whilst doing this kind of contemporary new age kind of experimental stuff, I'm still quite attached to the old ways of getting an A4 file, faxing some A4 paper and having to highlight it and write down stage direction and how to stand, and that whole kind of cataloguing of how to be on stage within a script. I mean, recently I ended up playing Scrooge in a Rotherham Rep production of Christmas Carol, which was bizarre to be cast as Scrooge, being at the age I am, and obviously there being quite a few, let's say, older members of the company. But it works, and it was a great experience. Certainly, I learned a lot about physicality through Dana Corner, my girlfriend at the minute, hopefully for a bit longer. She's kind of got me thinking about staging and scripts, and particularly inflection and how to kind of transpose my own meaning onto the dialogue on the page, and actually being aware of what I'm saying and actually thinking about what I'm saying rather than just blurting it all out. Yeah. And again, there's something nice about going back to that kind of, because for so long I was away from scripts and I was working on my own kind of way to make performance rather than taking scripts and doing it. But it was nice to just go back and to actually be reintroduced to that after I've done all this more kind of contemporary states of being, even just simple things like how to stand on stage at like 3/4 so the audience can see all your fun, and how not to upstage someone, and those kind of relationships. Definitely. I watched Fight Club as part of my English Lit A-level, and I fell in love with it, and it really introduced me to this kind of nihilistic kind of way of thinking, this idea that society is actually rotten to its very core, and we're obsessed with image. And I mean, it's become such a cliche, I suppose, sometimes for people to talk about capitalism eroding the moral fibre of the Western world, and you could argue that everything has become a commodity, even human beings have. But it did have that kind of profound effect on me, where I kind of realised it was the film that taught me it's okay for me not to have a six-pack because Tommy Hilfiger's models have got one. American History X as well, that was a good kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Niche. There's a term for it, but it was a good film for me in terms of exposing me to a wider culture that I wasn't aware of, particularly in, I think it's not set in Venice Beach, is it set in Venice Beach? Wherever American History X is set, it kind of opened me to that kind of perception. I mean, where I'm from, there is inherent amounts of racism, but nothing on the scale of their experience in that kind of film, and it awakens you. It doesn't awaken you, sorry. It brings it to the front of your mind that these issues are still massively relevant, even if they're not necessarily relevant to where you live. And in terms of actors as well, I still love everything Edward Norton does. Both of those films have Edward Norton in them. Sorry. The Illusionist as well. It's another one of my films that's on my list of my top 100. well, as I mentioned earlier, players that influenced me, certainly LSD, Just for High Points by the Worcester Group, which is kind of like, it's a version of the Crucible, but there's been stuff kind of superimposed on the top of it, and it becomes they changed it from a play about a witch hunt in Salem that happened in, I think it was either the 17 or the 1800s, and it became a much more, well, it was produced in the 1980s, I think it was 86 or 87, but it started to function as a political allegory for the communist witch hunt which happened in America in the late 60s and 70s. And we did another version of it, actually, come to think of it, on my bachelor's, where we took the structure that the Worcester Group created using sections of the Crucible, but we overlaid stuff like Batman versus the Joker, and obviously all that implies with Heath Ledger's death, and this idea of creating illusions, where at one point I was John Proctor, then I went off stage, put on a Batman costume, and on top of that this big papier-mâché Mr. Potato Head costume. It sounds really bizarre, but this actually happened. And then I came on stage, I hug this woman who's playing Mrs. Proctor, because I was playing John Proctor, I hug her, and there's this big scene down the back of it, and she pulls this thing apart, this potato head costume, and I step out, and then suddenly I'm Batman. And then Tom Whiffen, the guy who played the Joker in this version, grabbed me, so we just ended up going for it. I ended up punching him in the face on the first night, which was fun. He didn't deserve it, let the record state, but yeah, other players that have influenced me though, particularly the more kind of straight. I do love Cat on a Hot Tin Roof by Tennessee Williams. Again, it relates to this idea of homophobia in late 50s America. It is very much, I feel like it's a product of the times that Tennessee Williams, but obviously Tennessee Williams was an out gay man, which I don't know if, I mean, you could argue that gives the play weight, or it kind of gives it a sense of authenticity, I suppose. But yeah, that was one that stuck with me. The master's course that I'm on at the minute, I'm currently studying my master's in theatre and performance at the University of Sheffield. How I ended up being here, it was a mixture of quite a few things. Obviously my first choice, well actually no, let me start right from the beginning. When I was in my third year of my bachelor's, one of my tutors recommended to me a course in Amsterdam, which I thought I would really like. I applied for it and I didn't get the funds, so no year in Amsterdam studying theatre, which was kind of, well, it was gutting actually, but yeah. And then I found a similar course at Plymouth, but I realised I was turned down for funding again, so I couldn't go to Plymouth. So I ended up just having a look online, seeing if there was any theatre courses nearby in South Yorkshire. And obviously there is one in Sheffield because I'm doing it, hence why I'm at Sheffield. And obviously, to be fair, it was kind of the cheapest option because I still live at home with my parents and my mum and dad, and I commute into Sheffield every day to do my course. Yeah. My initial kind of reaction to the course as such, to be frank, it wasn't what I was expecting it to be, but I don't mean that in a bad way, because I thought it would be kind of similar to my bachelor's, where it would be a constant engagement with different practitioners and devising and things like that, but that's not what it's been at all. It kind of looked at a whole scope of different areas that I've never looked at. For example, one-to-one performance, site-specific performance that I've been interested in but never had a chance to do properly before. And we've also done kind of a lot of theoretical work about the idea of authenticity in performance, what kind of makes a performance authentic, and by authentic I don't mean true, I mean it's not an obsession with truth or believability as such. It's more kind of what defines a theatrical event in order to. It relates to this idea of the suspension of disbelief of the audience as well, and how to suspend the disbelief of the audience in order to get them to engage with the actual performance itself. And I mean, I have to admit, I've met a hell of a lot of interesting people. Well, I say a hell of a lot, there's about 15 people on the course and they're all wonderful and interested. We've got everything from, we've got a couple of people who enjoy writing scripts, we've got a couple of people who are interested solely in performance. There's a woman from Los Angeles whose background is in film and TV, which certainly puts an interesting spin on things, particularly when she talked about how much she hates America, despite the fact she's from America, which struck me as a bit of a paradigm, but yeah, not paradigm, sorry, paradox even. I mean, in terms of the future, I honestly, to be fair, I honestly don't have a clue. I've got, like I mentioned earlier, I've got a tour lined up where I'm going as a technical manager, and I've got a festival coming up where I'm a front of house manager. But to be fair, I'm still struggling with what I'd like to do. I'm still trying to find that little piece of something that, once I get it, I'm gone. But it's that little thing that I definitely want to do, and I've been talking to people about the opportunity of going to teach in America for a couple of years, which I'm half and half, because I always get this image in my head of I'll be that one person who goes to America and goes into the wrong neighbourhood and gets shot on the first day, because I'm that. I've got a feeling that would happen to me if I ever went to America. But the other thing is, as well, in terms of the future, I'm still very kind of open to new things and to new experiences. And to be fair, I would actually love to work abroad. I've kind of been not stuck, but a lot of the work I have done has been kind of based in the north of England. And obviously I want to kind of expand my kind of experience working in different environments and with different people. One of my friends has told me that they're looking for theatre technicians to go and work abroad in places like Germany, Cyprus and things like that, which again I would love to do. But to be fair, the first thing I'll probably do when I finish my masters is get a job, just to kind of pay off the overdraft, which is alright at the minute. It's currently standing at £1,000. So, you know, a couple of weeks in an office it'll pay off. But the future, it just seems like the future to me just seems like a vast kind of thing stretching out in front of me forever. And I just don't know which path I would like to take. But to be fair, as long as I'm continuing to work in theatre with people that I care about, and people who care about what they do and are invested in what they do, then I'll be happy. The top bit, that bit in the middle, I got done after I had my dissertation in on my BA, and that bit at the top reads lithium, which means freedom. That bit on that side is, well, that one is, that's friendship, and that one, that's meleth, and that's hor, which means courage. And I've got another bit to get there, which is gwend, and it's love, courage and friendship crowning freedom.